folks, Toad here with VisorDown.com and welcome to Tenerife for the launch of Yamaha's 2020 Tracer 700. A few details about this bike. So it's the biggest update to the Tracer 700 since the bike was released. This is £7,799. Bikes are expected to be in dealers in the UK mid-March. And it's proposed that you can pick them up on a PCP deal, for around about 89 quid a month. So still very good value motoring in my eyes. Just going to go through what's new with this bike and what Yamaha have actually updated before we go through what it's like to ride and what we've been doing with it. So aside from the revised styling, we've now got upgraded adjustable suspension front and rear, which is spring preload and rebound damping adjustability, and they are KYB forks and a KYB or Kayaba rear shock absorber. We've got a new reverse LCD dash, which is very similar to the one on the MT-09 SP, which is a lovely thing to look at and very easy to read in any conditions. And we've also got revised rider and passenger seats and a slightly lower seat height. And the upper body ergonomics have also been altered, so the bars are wider and slightly different shape to the old bikes. So let's go through the engine of this thing first and foremost. So aside from Euro 5, there's really not a lot that's gone on with the engine. It was a good unit to start with, and Yamaha, they haven't really gone about reinventing the wheel with this one. It is now Euro 5, so the eagle-eyed among you will notice that it's kind of sprouted an extra catalyst at the front of the engine down there. Whereas before there was just the single collector box underneath the bike. It kind of looks a bit like a baked bean tin that's been stuck on the exhaust manifold. It's not the prettiest looking thing, but it is there to do a job and to get the bike through the most stringent latest round of Euro regulations. It makes exactly the same peak power and peak torque as the old bike, although torque now comes in at about 500 RPM less. Not that you're really going to notice that. And they've also geared this bike differently, so there's a couple of extra teeth on the rear cog, just makes it feel a little bit more eager in acceleration. The engine is a properly nice little unit. Parallel twins shouldn't really be this much fun to ride, but the CP2, the cross-plane crank that Yamaha have developed, it's just a really fizzy and really excitable unit, and it works well in this bike. I mean, it's in the MT-07 as well, and it's just a really lively little engine. You can cruise on the motorway with it. It's not too vibey, but when you get on a twisty road, it's a lot of fun to ride, and things deceptively quick. You look at 75 horsepower and 700 cc's, but this thing it gets down the road quite quickly and rather well, I've got to say. We were out riding all day yesterday on these, and it was twisty mountain roads and switchbacks and everything else that goes with a motorcycle launch. I think it's averaging about 52 miles per gallon as well, which is pretty good because that's not hardly any of that was sort of motorway cruising or dual carriageway. So we've got, they are KYB forks and a KYB shock, and as I mentioned, there's spring preload and rebound damping adjustability front and rear. It's the biggest change, aside from the styling, it's the biggest change that you notice when you ride this bike is how much more composed it is on this new suspension setup. I didn't tweak any of the settings, just left them on stock, and it's really nicely damped, and it's still comfortable, but the old Tracer 700 kind of had a propensity where it'd pogo a little bit, and sometimes you'd trail brake into a corner, and then just as you're about to tip it in, you'd release the brake and tip it in earnest, and the front suspension had come boinging up, and the top yoke had nearly hit you in the face. And there is none of that. It's a lot sportier. It's a lot more precise, and it's just a really, really nicely suspended bike. To sort of paraphrase it, the Tracer 700, almost the suspension on it wasn't so much sports tour, it sort of felt like a commuter bike, and it was a bit budget, and this is a lot classier and a lot better, so it's a big thumbs up from me on that front. So the braking system that we've got is, again, unchanged. We've got no IMU controlling any ABS or anything like that. You've just got a two-channel system. I didn't feel it cutting in at all, apart from on the back wheel when we were riding yesterday. So it's not overly intrusive. And the only thing that I will say is you can't switch the ABS off. It is on all of the time. Riding quite hard on some of the roads where we've got, couple of 100 metres and a switchback hairpin, a couple of 100 metres, and it was hairpin after hairpin after hairpin, and it was like that for about sort of 6 or 7 miles. I didn't get any brake fade or anything like that. I think the calipers are pretty much the same that they used to fit to the old R6s, the old Yamaha Blue Dot calipers, so they are more than up to the task of stopping this thing. Point of a bike like this is it's got to be comfortable, and you've got to be able to do some miles on it, commuting and touring. And for me and my height and my body shape, I think Yamaha have knocked it out of the park. I find it upper and lower body ergonomics are really, really good. I mentioned at the start the bars are slightly different to the old Tracer 700, so they are wider. I'm not sure they feel a little bit more sort of set back as well, but it's a really neutral riding position. It's a very relaxing place to sit. The only thing I would say is if you're any taller than me, you might find that lower body ergonomics, the seat to peg distance quite sports bike-esque in that the pegs are quite set high. But like I said, for me, riding yesterday, it was not an issue at all. Another new feature for this year is that we've got an adjustable screen which you can adjust on the fly with one hand. The old Tracer 700 had 2 little spinny wing nuts that you had to undo, and you couldn't really do it comfortably on the move. You can with this new system, and it's really, really easy to do. The only thing is the screen is so small that even on its tallest setting, my head is half in and half out of the bubble of air over the bike, which means you get that real sort of like buffeting sound around your head. If you're any taller than me, your head's going to be outside the bubble, and there's just no point even moving the screen. Leave it on its lowest setting and just treat the bike like a naked. Yamaha do an aftermarket screen, which you can stick on there, which is taller, more contoured, and I did ride that bike yesterday, and yes, it was a lot quieter. So if you are going to do serious miles and you don't like having all that buffeting air around your head, I would opt for the increased screen, because it is going to be a godsend for you. Equipment, as I mentioned, we've got a new reverse LCD dash, which is really nice, really easy to use. Within the dash, you've got your trips, your range to empty, your average MPG, all the other bits and bobs that you'd want. It doesn't have any riding modes or anything that you can alter or adjust in the way that the bike rides or the way that the systems on the bike work. It is just as it is, so there's no power modes, you can't switch any ABS or anything like that. Does it need it? I don't really think so. It's not a sports bike, it is a sports tourer, and it's sporty enough on standard that you can go out and have some fun on it, definitely. They've updated the switch gear as well for this year, just so that you can flick through the trip on the left-hand handlebar and change the actual the menus with change what information you see in the dash. But yeah, very easy to use and very intuitive. I really like the styling. This is kind of like, there's a new breed of sort of sports tourer out there. So we've got bikes like this, we've got the BMW F900 XR, which has kind of got this new wave sort of styling to it, and I think it looks great. I think it looks like a concept bike. If you saw this on a stand and someone told you it was a concept, you'd think, oh, that's cool, I wonder what the production version will be like. But this is the production version. So yeah, really, really clean, and the new fairing, although it is a little bit noisier than the old one, it looks really compact, and it feels like a really nice place to be when you sat on the thing. The new suspension is very good and a marked improvement over the old bike. I spent probably getting off 10,000 miles on the original Tracer 700. It was my first press bike when I came into the industry. And the suspension was kind of the only thing that let it down, and that it was a little bit underdamped and a little bit softly sprung. So this has really, really fixed that. It's a totally different bike to ride. And the other thing that I really like about the Tracer 700 is the engine. It's a great little unit. It's got loads of character, and it is a lot more fun than a parallel twin should be. So, yep, it's decent little unit. There's a few things that kind of niggle with me. The screen, it's not going to provide you with any protection whatsoever. Don't make it adjustable. Just leave it on the lowest setting, because, I mean, I'm technically a dwarf and my head's outside the bubble, so I don't see the point in being able to lift it up or put it down an inch. There's no USB as standard as well, which is it's kind of annoying, because it costs pence to fit it to the bike, and I know that people buy them as aftermarket accessories, but it's a £3 part. Just stick a USB on the dash and let people charge their phone up while they're on the go. I think it's silly not to have it. Also, this is a sports tourer, so it's got the word tour in there, and it doesn't have cruise control. I know it's got cable operated throttles, so it's a little bit trickier to do, but cruise control on a bike that you're going to sit on the motorway on is quite a sensible thing to have. There we have it, the Tracer 700. It's quick, it's comfortable, it's sharper looking, it's more agile, it's more precise, it's definitely sportier while still being a sports tourer. You've got luggage, it's got comfort for the passenger and the rider. It's still probably, for £8,000, is probably the best midweight long-legged sports tourer that money can buy, in my mind. It's a proper cool little thing, and if you like what you see, get yourself down to a Yamaha dealer and check it out for yourself. You can read a full review on visordown.com. Thanks very much, folks.